All right. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the live stream. Glad you could join me today. We'll give it a moment or two for people to find their way onto the channel tonight. And to be honest with you, I am pretty new to streaming. I'm not one who has done a lot of streaming. And so I would appreciate your comments if you can hear me okay. And if you can see the screen, that'd be great to know. So, over the past few weeks, there have been some really thoughtful questions and comments on my videos that have come in. And I want to take some time, opportunity to address some of those. We're going to look at a range of topics today. We'll talk about the Septuagint, the Dead Sea Scrolls. We'll go into the importance of the original Hebrew text. And we'll even um, address some of the challenges that people have made in regards to the English Standard Version. That's something we'll talk about tonight. I'd also like, Lord willing, and if we have time, I'd like to talk about the Sabbath. There have been a number of people, every time I bring up that subject, there's a number of people who feel very passionately about the Sabbath day, and that's something that I would personally like to share with you my thoughts on that subject. If we have time along the way, I'll share perhaps a correction. That's something I said in regards to Hosea chapter 14 and verse 2. We'll discuss a comment that someone made in regards to a paid comment. For those of you that don't know, I do have a membership page as well. Not really promoting that right now, but there were some questions about whether that's appropriate to have that. So if you're just joining, stick with me because this is going to be a great time. Think carefully about the Bible, its history and translation. And as always, I want you to drop your thoughts and questions in the live chat. I'll do my best to interact as we go. In just a moment, we'll dive right in. But again, thank you for being here. You're very valued. And thank you, David, for letting me know that you can see and hear. That's encouraging. Like I said, I don't use this software very often, and this is kind of new to me. And so I have a comment section there for a reason. And also there is a description here that I'll be referring to. That is the description of this video. The advantage to doing regular videos is if you make a mistake, you can hopefully get it edited out. But without that feature, sometimes you might need the description. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about was the ESV. And somebody had asked, so Dwayne Green and I had done a video ranking various translations. And one of the translations that we ranked was the ESV. And someone asked, how could you rank the ESV so high if it uses the critical text rather than the Byzantine text? How could you rank it so high? And I think there's a number of considerations when you're thinking about um, a translation more than just its base text. So, my friend Daryl Burling, he likes to say that the translation you're going to use is more impacted by the philosophy of the translators in terms of the kinds of differences you're going to see between various translations. You're going to see more differences between those translations than you are going to see in the underlying Greek. So, in the underlying Greek, you'll have large swaths of text sometimes that will read exactly the same, whether you're using the critical text or the Byzantine text. I think it's around the first 14 verses of the Gospel of John. Those will align in just about whatever printed edition you want to use. They have exactly without any, I mean, there's textual variants in the manuscripts, but as far as our main lines of thought, whether you're Byzantine priority or majority text guy, those exact words are going to appear in those various um, printed editions. So Why did I rank the ESV as highly as I did? I think one of the reasons is its translation philosophy, because the translators realized their job was to translate the text and try to avoid interpreting the text as much as possible. Now, pretty much every translation is going to have a measure of interpretation in it. That's just inevitable. But when you're dealing with a formal translation like the ESV, then you're dealing with something that is trying to get as close to the original text as possible. Another reason I rank the ESV so high, even though I'm not a critical text person, is that it's a beautiful translation. It's idiomatic, and it's been widely adopted. And so I think there's a number of reasons why you might appreciate the beauty of this translation. And also, I'll say that it had a number of very good conservative, let me stress that, conservative scholars that were working on it. Now, conservative is a slippery term, conservative is kind of in the eye of the beholder, of course, but I think that for those reasons, I think the ESV is a good translation. Uh, Don says, I've been listening to everything you've done on the dating of Revelation. I appreciate your efforts. So informative. Don, thank you so much for that. I love the book of Revelation. I think we'll be talking about it until the Lord returns. I like the joke that I heard somebody say that there's a, a message in Revelation chapter 8 that says that there was silence in heaven for the space of half an hour. Somebody said that was so that the preachers would have time to correct their charts. But anyways, I love the book of Revelation, love digging into it, and I appreciate your encouragement there. Biblical misconception says if all of the translations are subjective, and so yes, bad, like your work. Yeah, I think there's a measure of truth that every translation you're going to be making translation decisions. And there are times a lot of people think that the Greek is a lot more specific, a lot there's a lot more precision in Greek than there is in English, and that is true. That is true. However, the issue there is that there are times where English will be more specific, and to bring it into English, you have to bring some specificity that's not in the original text. And so you are making judgments every time you translate the text. There's no such thing as a text that is completely neutral and has no way of no interpretation that's involved. There's always some interpretation that's involved. Uh, ESV uses critical text, but it doesn't use critical scholarship. It makes a lot of presumptions. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I do appreciate the ESV. I appreciate a lot of good English. That we're blessed with a lot of good English translations. I personally still love the King James Version Bible. I know that's not a popular stance to take, and people will kind of look funny at you for still promoting and loving the King James Version. It was interesting. There was someone who commented on my channel recently who was Orthodox, actually, and so he has no axe to grind in regards to the King James Version. But I think he said that he had been at a funeral and he heard the majestic words of the King James Version, and you just realize the heavy lifting, the pastoral heavy lifting that the King James Version has done over 400 years. There's a majesty and a beauty to that text that I just really appreciate. So again, we've got a number of things we're going to try to get to, a number of topics that we're going to get to. But one thing I would like to do today is, if you would like to, I'd like to give you a quiz. It's kind of been one of the things that we've been doing on my channel. I'm hoping to get through 10 quiz questions today. And so I'm going to give you a quiz question here. If you make it to the end of this streams tend to be a little longer than regular videos. So if you make it to the end of this stream today, then let us know what score you got on this quiz. So here's our first quiz question. The Septuagint, LXX, is a translation of the Old Testament into which language? Now, if you've watched my channel for quite a while, you'll probably know the answer to this. But is it A, Latin, B, Greek? Is it C, Aramaic, or is it D, Hebrew? Well, if you said Greek, you are right. Okay, remember, give us your score at the end of this live stream. We'll have 10 questions. Let us know if you got 1 out of 10. You'll probably get more than 1 out of 10 if you make it to the end of this live stream. You have to be a pretty good Bible student to want to hear this much about the Bible in one setting. So, but yes, let us know your score on that. And I have something else I'd like to ask you too, if you're willing. It's sort of become a bit of a tradition. I want your opinion on this too. It's sort of become a motto around here, the term digging deep. And it's sort of, I started with the motto ad fontes, which in some ways I like better, but we've been using this motto here, digging deep. If you have an intention on making it to the end of this live stream, you might not make it. I'm going to try to keep it to about an hour today, but if you might not make it tonight, but if you have an intention to make it to the end of the live stream, whether you watch the rest of it on another day, would you type into the comments digging deep, and let me know how you like that motto. Somebody said they'd even like to see a shirt with the words digging deep on it at some point. So I'd be interested to see what some of you would say. And then, uh, yes, we've already got one digging deep there. I appreciate that. Yes, please. I'd love to have more people along the way. Yes, David says digging deep. Thank you guys. I appreciate that very much. Means a lot to me. And it means a lot to be a part of a growing community that really loves getting into the word. All right. I had a really good comment that came up. So this is the second issue we're going to deal with that had to do with the original Hebrew. And I thought the comment, another digging deep there. Thank you guys. Appreciate that. Um, uh, I thought the comment was so good that I wanted to share it with you and then discuss it for its importance here, because I think it really ties into a lot of the things that I'm doing on this channel. Now they're digging deep, guys. Thank you so much. This really means. Autumn says digging deep. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Yeah, another Ladonna. I'm seeing some names of some ladies on the stream, and so I appreciate that. That most of my viewers are men by the demographics my YouTube tells me about. So it's always encouraging to see that we're reaching out beyond. In fact, I skew towards men that are 40 years old and upward. I think that might have something to do with my gray hair. Don't let my gray hair deceive you, though. I'm prematurely gray. Okay, so let's get back to this comment here. Original Hebrew. Someone left this comment for me, and I'll try to read it here for you. Let's make that a little bigger, hopefully. It says, relying solely on a Greek translation, such as the Septuagint, without returning to the original Hebrew, risk building theology on ideas shaped by a different culture's worldview. Translators in the Hellenistic period often resolved difficult Hebrew phrases in ways that reflected Hebrew linguistic names, philosophical concepts, and theological assumptions. These cultural influences could subtly shift meanings, adding nuances or emphasis foreign to the Hebrew text. Over time, each culturally colored renderings may be treated as the authoritative wording, even when the Hebrew conveys something quite different. I thought that was a insightful insightful comment, and I want to comment on the comment, if you will. So one of the things that I want to get at here is he says without reference to the original Hebrew. Here's the problem with saying that, though, and I'm not criticizing too much. In principle, I agree with what he says here, but one of the problems with saying that is we don't have the original Hebrew. What we have are manuscripts and copies, which I think are generally very reliable. I think we have some very good Hebrew manuscripts, which are generally reliable. But the value in going into the Septuagint, thank you, Christy. Christy is digging deep tonight. I appreciate that very much. Someone else, Autumn, says she likes the idea for a T-shirt. Thank you guys for these ideas and encouragements. Yes, that's great. I really appreciate that. Kill Dalton Biblical Theological Studies. Sorry if I pronounced the beginning of that wrong. 90% are theology geeks. Yes, I'm glad to have all of you on board. And yes, I think we do attract some theology geeks to be sure. But we don't have the original Hebrew text, and that's a problem. And our earliest Hebrew manuscripts that we have outside of the Dead Sea Scrolls, our Masoretic manuscripts, are dating from 900 AD and later. And so the value in having the Septuagint is that we have a text that predates, we have manuscripts that predate those manuscripts by centuries. And so it's very valuable to be able to refer to that. More than that, we're going to discuss here later in this video some of the value in the Septuagint. And before we do, though, let's hit our second quiz question here. Again, for those of you that plan on watching the entire video, would like to hear your score at the end of this. The Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in which country? Israel, Egypt, Jordan, or Greece? And the answer to that is, give you a second, it is Israel. The Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in Israel. So be keeping up with your score. There'll be 10 questions. Sorry for the repetitiveness of me repeating myself, but some people are just joining on, and we are happy to have you on the stream today. All right. So let's talk about that then. Why the Septuagint is important. And I was reading an article in the Anchor Bible Dictionary recently, and what I liked what they said is the Septuagint was not just a version for the early church. It wasn't just, I'm paraphrasing, obviously, it wasn't just that they thought it represented the Bible. They considered it to be the Bible. When they're talking about the early church, they're talking about these early centuries of the church. And when I say it preserves an older text tradition, I am really talking about the idea that these manuscripts that we have predate our Masoretic manuscripts. And I've done videos now showing that there are times where the Septuagint and the Dead Sea Scrolls, our earliest Hebrew manuscripts, will align sometimes against the Masoretic text. And where that becomes particularly interesting to me is there will be times where you'll have a Dead Sea Scroll manuscript, a Septuagint manuscript, and a New Testament quotation that all align. And I think those things should give us serious pause to think, hey, we need to look at this. Not that I don't value the Masoretic text. That's my default text. I do appreciate, I think they did a good job on it. I'm not disparaging the Masoretic text, but I think there is enormous value in the Septuagint. And really, I began discussing the Septuagint on my channel because there was a need. People wanted to hear about it. And it's not something that I'm just obsessed with. I like the Septuagint. I'm drawn to the Septuagint. It's very interesting to me. But there does seem to be a lot of people that are interested in finding out what the Septuagint is. And there is a lot of misinformation about the Septuagint. And I've tried, you can't say everything in every single video. So no matter what video I make, somebody will add some sort of nuance about this. You know, the Septuagint was only the first 5 books of Moses, and others got translated later. And it wasn't as if there was one bound copy of the Septuagint. There's so much nuance that we could add to what the Septuagint is. But one of the things I'm trying to do is to provide a counter balance to a lot of the misinformation that's out there about the Septuagint, because it seems like you have these various extremes in regards to the Septuagint. The various extremes being you have almost like a Septuagint onlyism that's out there, that the Septuagint is infallible and completely superior in every single way and couldn't possibly make a mistake. And then on the other side, you have some people who think that the Septuagint is just terrible, and that it's the origin created it. And so I've tried to provide some balance there. Had Dr. William Ross, who wrote a terrific book in connection with Dr. Greg Lanier on this subject. And we provide, in that, Dr. Ross provides a lot of nuance to what the Septuagint is. And what is undeniable is this fourth point here. It shaped Christian theology and worship, and that is undeniable. If you can trace church history, people were reading the Septuagint, they were drawing from the Septuagint, and so it is enormously important. It's hard to overstate the value of the Septuagint. Okay, all right. I appreciate the encouragement there. LaDonna says, yes, I'm drawn to it as well. That's one of the main reasons I watch your channel. I appreciate that. And there's a number of people that are like that are watching the channel because they're interested in the Septuagint. So I keep making videos on the Septuagint. It's almost inexhaustible, some of the things. And when you're reading the Greek New Testament, there have been times I've been reading the Greek New Testament, and suddenly there's an allusion to the Old Testament that you would miss because you don't recognize it because you're used to reading the text, an English translation of the Hebrew text, which doesn't reflect what the New Testament writer was alluding to, and so it's enormously valuable. David says, "I appreciate these Septuagint videos. I didn't really know much about it till I saw your channel. Now I think it's a pretty cool subject. I do too. I think it's a great subject." All right, so here is our next quiz question. This is number 3 of 10 that we have. Again, if you make it to the end, please give us your score. And if you intend on watching this entire video, I said at the beginning, just type in the comments, digging deep. You don't have to watch it all today, but if your intention is to go back and watch this whole video, please type in the comments, digging deep. It's sort of our motto around here. But people are even telling me they want to see a shirt with the words digging deep on it. So I'm very much considering that. Which group of books is included in the Septuagint but not in the traditional Hebrew Bible? Is it A, the Gospels? Is it B, the Apocrypha, and some are going to call that deuterocanonical books? Is it C, Pauline epistles, or is it D, Psalms? I'll give you a second to think about that. The answer to that is B, Apocrypha. Now, what's interesting is our Septuagint will, when we call the Septuagint, what we're talking about is a Greek translation of the Old Testament and also these other books. There, depending on which manuscript you're looking at, will depend on which, what as a Protestant I'll call apocryphal books, which collection it's going to contain. There's some variance between different collections that you have in various codexes. All right. So I want to pick up a topic here. Here's a question that came up on Canaan. So if you're not familiar with this name, it's actually a very important name in the genealogy of Jesus. I know everybody's eyes sort of gloss over when you talk about genealogies, but one of the important subjects in regards to the genealogies is this name Canaan. And the reason why it's important that, and somebody could correct me if I get the verse number wrong. I should have put it in my notes here, but I think it's Luke 3:36 has the word Canaan in the genealogy of Jesus. The Masoretic text does not have that name. And so this is a place, from my perspective, that I think the Septuagint got it right. Otherwise, we'd have to say, otherwise, it's hard to get around the fact that Luke, if you don't say the Septuagint got it right, then it's tantamount to saying that Luke got it wrong, and we don't want to say that. Okay, there are ways to work around this, and you could try to insert Canaan in there, and I discussed this in the video that I did on genealogies, but I want to get to the main question that someone asked me. They had heard that the oldest manuscripts of Luke didn't contain the name Canaan. And this is really fascinating because the main critical text that we have for the New Testament, this is 27th edition. It's up to the 28th edition. I think a 29th edition coming out soon. But it lists P75 as a witness omitting Canaan in Luke 3:36, if I've got the verse number right there. But what's interesting to that is that if you look at that textual apparatus, and guys, please stay with me. This will not stay this technical for that long, but some of you decided that you were going to dig deep today. So let me go just a little deeper here. In the textual apparatus of the Nestle text, next to P75, it has the letters VID, which basically means that the manuscript at this point is defective. And when you go and you actually look at the manuscript itself, you can see it. You can see that it's not just a little defective, it's almost destroyed at this particular point. And there has been recent work that's been done on this. And now I'm going to hopefully quote for you the work of James Stamp Jr. He has an article on this. Um, the bottom line, I'm not going to quote this whole thing. In fact, it's kind of small on my screen. Maybe you can read it, but I put a link to James Stamp Jr.'s article on this. What I think is demonstrably true is that P75 is not a witness to the omission of Canaan. So, in other words, our oldest manuscript of Luke um, would probably have contained this. At most, it doesn't give us any evidence either way because it's destroyed. Now, what's fascinating is there is only then one clear Greek manuscript that omits it. Only one clear Greek manuscript that omits Canaan in Luke. And do you know what manuscript that is? That is Codex Bezae, which is well, some people are going to find it valuable for different reasons, but it does some bizarre stuff. I mean, Codex Bezae is one of our most bizarre Greek manuscripts. So it imports the genealogy of Matthew into Luke, then reverses the order. And so it's not very surprising that it would have a mistake where Canaan's not in it. What's significant here is that the word or name rather of Canaan is witnessed by every school of textual criticism. Whether you take the critical text view, you could go with the Tyndale House Greek New Testament, you could take the Byzantine guys, you can take the Textus Receptus. Everyone who's done a printed edition of the Greek New Testament has printed that name Canaan. It's there for a reason. It's because Luke actually wrote that, and that's evidence that I think that our Septuagint, the Septuagint actually got that right, which is significant when we're talking about the genealogies, because there's about a 1400-year difference between the Masoretic text and the Septuagint in regards to counting of genealogies. And so this is a fascinating discussion. Someone else is digging deep here. I really appreciate you guys digging deep tonight. So what we're doing tonight is we're addressing questions. If you have a question that you'd like addressed, I'll try to make time for it. The time is zipping by here for me. It might be long for you, but it's zipping by on this side. And so we're going through some quiz questions tonight. So here we go. The Dead Sea Scrolls date mainly from which time period? Dead Sea Scrolls date mainly from which time period? Is it A, 500 to 400 BC? Is it B, 250 BC to 70 AD? Is it C, 300 to 500 AD? Or is it D, 1000 to 1200 AD? Yes. Kildalton, Biblical Theological Studies. Yes, Codex Bezae does seem to be trying to harmonize the genealogies. And DJ has got the answer right here. This is B, 250 BC to AD 70. Yes, you guys are doing great. Thank you for sticking with me. Thank you for digging deep. Appreciate you guys tonight. All right. I had somebody ask me about paid content. Well, not really ask me, really kind of criticize me because I do have a membership that's available. And I don't even have it in the description or anything. This isn't a plug for it or anything like that. But I do have a membership. And what that does is it gives a chance for people who want to support this channel. It has a crazy cost to it. It's so unaffordable. I'm kidding. I left it very affordable for a reason. It's $1.99. So if somebody wants to join, I have a few videos on there, not a whole lot. Mostly the people who come on there are just there to try to support my channel, and I appreciate that. Some people don't realize there's expense that goes into this. Now I'm live streaming to use StreamYard, for example. There's fees that are associated with that if you don't use the free version. I did the 7-day trial today, but I have somebody who helps. Some of you have commented you like how the videos are edited. That costs money. There's some ad revenue that comes in. But if you added up everything that I spent last year, this isn't a sad story. I'm just explaining the paid content piece of this. If you added up all my expenses last year for YouTube and what I made from, ad revenue, I think I was in the hole a little bit. So it's not like I'm making a bunch of money on this. Somebody said you shouldn't profit on the gospel and those sorts of things. Most of my stuff is not basic, on that paid side. It's not basic gospel presentations. 99% of everything I do is free. And I've even said that if somebody really wants to see that content on the other side of that paid wall, they can't afford the $1.99. Like, seriously, I get it. Send me an email. It's first name dot last name at outlook.com. If you can't afford that, let me know, and I'll try to work out something so that you can have access to that content. It's more of just a way for people to try to support what we're doing here. So anyways, just trying to address that comment there. All right, our next quiz question. Which famous Bible translation was completed in 1611? Was it A, the Geneva Bible? Was it B, the King James Version? Was it C, the New International Version? Or was it D, the English Standard Version? This is the fifth question of 10. When you get to the end of this, let us know your score at the end. But the correct answer here is yes. We Debate has got it right. We Debate is someone who's in the comments here. If you're wondering, if you're watching this, you're not watching the comments. It is the King James Version Bible. So very good, very good. Let's go on to our next issue that has come up on the channel, and that is the Sabbath. There may be some people that are on the live stream who observe the Sabbath. Before we get into that, let's look at some of these comments that we have here. Sparker Ross says, so it's clear that Luke was quoting from the Septuagint. It's likely the Septuagint included the Canaan reference. Is it possible that this is a scribal error in the Septuagint? Well, some people would argue that. Yeah, some people would argue that it's a scribal error in the Septuagint. From my perspective, I have a high view of Scripture, and I think that, yes, Luke was drawing from the Septuagint, but he's doing so under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit. And so I think because Luke is writing in an inerrant manner, that means, for me, that he couldn't have imported a mistake into the New Testament because he was following the wrong text. Now, a lot of people are going to disagree with me on that, but it's going to come down to how you view inspiration, those sorts of things. But that would be my view on that. Okay, yeah, my name is Eric Waite. Glad to have you here, Eric. Yes, very much appreciate that. And sorry, I saw you actually on, I had accidentally scheduled the stream for this morning and really didn't intend to. And I saw your name pop up there, Eric, so I apologize for that. We Debate says the Septuagint and the Dead Sea Scrolls, are they both from the same time period? But our oldest Septuagint is from 6th century. Well, yeah, roughly speaking, the Septuagint was translated around 250 BC, somewhere in there, give or take. That's when they would have been translated. But the earliest manuscripts that we have of the Septuagint, now I'm talking about not just fragments, but like codices, they're going to go into like the 4th century. Whereas the Dead Sea Scrolls, they go back, sometimes a couple centuries before Christ. So the translation period, the Septuagint would have been being translated around the same time as the manuscripts that we have for the Dead Sea Scrolls, although we don't have any Septuagint manuscripts outside of little fragments that go that far back. The earliest, like, complete or semi-complete copies of the Septuagint are 4th century. All right. Very good, very good. Okay, so Sabbath. I've had a lot of people ask me, or not really ask me, but make comments on the Sabbath. I did a video recently, and I talked about Pentecost. Some of you may have seen that video on Pentecost. And I commented that Pentecost, the day of Pentecost, would have fell on the first day of the week, which is when we believe that Jesus was raised from the dead. And so a lot of people commented, and I mentioned that John was in the Spirit on the Lord's Day, and a lot of people were uh, very not happy with me for saying that because they believe the Lord's Day is the Sabbath. Now, let me just be very clear here. If your view is that you are to rest on the Sabbath day and keep the Sabbath, uh, don't let me try to pull that away from you or take that away from you. I'm perfectly happy for you to keep that day if that's what you feel like you're supposed to do. If you feel conviction to do that, I don't want to dissuade you in any way. I will give you my perspective though. But before I do, let me steel man the argument for those who believe in keeping the Sabbath day. That is basically not working on Saturday, and many of them would go further and say to worship on Saturday. They would say that the Sabbath is eternal and it's not temporary. So they're going to appeal to the fact that in Genesis chapter 2, God rested on the Sabbath. God himself rested on the Sabbath. Number two, they're going to argue that Jesus and the apostles kept the Sabbath, and I think for the most part that's right. Number three, they're going to say that the Ten Commandments are God's eternal moral law. Number four, they're going to argue, and let me flesh that out on number three a little bit. The Ten Commandments are unique, and it's referred to as a covenant. And Jesus in Matthew 5:17 through 19 says he's not going to destroy the law. And further, many would argue that the change to Sunday is human tradition. And they would also argue that it was the Roman Catholic Church that changed this tradition. And some of them will even go further and say that if you are observing the first day of the week rather than the seventh day of the week. Some people have gone so far as to say you're taking the mark of the beast, and so I want to just address some of that. I'm going to address it from my vantage point. This is where I come down on the subject. I have never said that I'm aware of. If I did, I misspoke. It's not my view that Sunday, the first day of the week, is now the new Sabbath. Some people interpreted what I said to mean that that's not my view. I'm not making that claim. There are some Christians that will make that claim, but I personally do not make that claim. Now, what I would say is that Paul says, and let me just see if I can share my screen here. Let's see here. Share screen. I am a little new to the live streaming world, so thank you guys for bearing with me. Let me know. Can you let me know in the comments? Can you see my screen? Okay. Can you see the scriptures on the screen? All right. So Romans 6, Romans 6:14. Cool. Appreciate you guys seeing that. Yes. I would just ask that I know everybody has different views on this, but I prefer that we keep profanity out of the chat. But Romans 6:14 says, "You are not under the law, but under grace." Okay, so that's an interesting passage. And what I'd like to say here in regards to the Ten Commandments is that 9 of the Ten Commandments have been specifically reaffirmed in the New Testament. So far as I can see, and I'm talking about anything that dates from the cross and beyond, from the resurrection and beyond, all of the other 9 commandments have been reaffirmed in the New Testament, with the exception of the Sabbath day. However, if you look at Colossians, and I know those who believe that you should keep the Sabbath I'm not telling them scriptures that they're not familiar with. I'm sure they've examined these things, but I'm giving you my perspective. He says, "Let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink or in respect of a holy day or of the new moon or of the Sabbath days." We're not to allow anyone to judge us in regards to the Sabbath day. Now, if you want to keep the Sabbath, I want to say this: so far as I can see, and please, if you know something more about this, or you've got a scripture that I don't have on it, so far as I can see, the mandate, the command in Scripture for the Sabbath was to rest. The command was not necessarily to worship on the Sabbath. So if you want to rest on the Sabbath day, I think that's great, but I don't think you should. I think any day is a wonderful day to worship the Lord, but we have New Testament evidence that people were gathering together and they were worshiping on the Sabbath day. So, for example, in Acts chapter 20 and verse 7, Acts chapter 20 and verse 7, it says this: And upon the first day of the week, when the disciples came together to break bread, Paul preached unto them, ready to depart on the morrow. Most commentators will recognize that this breaking of bread was probably not just eating a meal together, but actually participating in a communion meal. And this isn't an isolated case. For example, in First Corinthians uh, 16 and verse 2, 1 Corinthians 16 and verse 2, he's talking about a gathering, an offering that would be taken up for the poor saints. And he says, Upon the first day of the week, let every one of you lay by him in store as God hath prospered him. Now, I mentioned Revelation chapter 1 and verse 10, Revelation chapter 1 and verse 10. John said, I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day. And some people took issue with the idea that I was calling the Lord's Day the first day of the week. Now, here I think is very clear evidence. Now, you don't have to slavishly worship the apostolic fathers or anything like that. I don't. I'm actually a sola scriptura guy, but sola scriptura doesn't mean that you only look at the Bible and nothing else. Historically, what's very interesting is that very early on, we have people commenting on what they were doing in these early churches. I apologize, I don't have this as a slide for you. Time is really getting away from me. But I want to quote from you now from Diognetus. Okay, so this is from the Ante-Nicene Fathers. This is part of that set there. Some of the earliest writings that we have of people who were Christians after the time after the apostles have died. And this is what Diognetus says, talking about the Jews and their observances. But as to their scrupulosity concerning meats and their superstition as respects the Sabbaths, and their boasting about circumcision and their fancies about fasting and the new moons, which are utterly ridiculous and unworthy of notice. Now, you might think that Diognetus is being pretty harsh there, and that's fine. But what you can't deny is to say, hey, we've got an early church writer here who is not keeping the Sabbath. Now, Diognetus is probably writing, it's debated, but maybe about 130. Not only do we have Diognetus, but we could look at the writings of Ignatius. Ignatius says this. Ignatius is writing early 100s, maybe 105, 130, like that. Ignatius says this: If therefore those who were brought up in the ancient order of things have come to the possession of a new hope, no longer observing the Sabbath, but living in observance of the Lord's day. It's very clear. This is someone who is living, the Apostle John dies about 80, 90 or so, and in living memory, as it were, of the Apostle John, and you are making it very clear that you are not equating the Sabbath day with the Lord's day. We could go on and on with quotes like this. I'll give you one more, and this was from Justin Martyr. Is there any other matter, my friends, in which we are blamed than this, that we live not after the law and are not circumcised in the flesh as your forefathers were, and do not observe Sabbaths as you do? And that's not the only quotes we could marshal from that early period. If we began adding quotations from Tertullian and Clement of Alexandria, in other words, here's the point. I'm not arguing because on the authority of these men. What I'm arguing is that you can see a clear pattern over a broad geographical area. So it's not like we just have isolated quotations from one area of the Mediterranean. It's all over, from North Africa to Syria to Italy, all over this united testimony that they were not observing the Sabbath. Now, how could that possibly happen in churches which the apostles founded? Why don't you have these dissenting voices? At a minimum, it makes you question this. And so, for those reasons and many others, I don't think we are under obligation to hold to the Sabbath now. And again, I would add that I think the biblical mandate was to rest on the Sabbath day. What we see in the New Testament is that I think that that Sabbath day has been fulfilled in Christ, and He's become our Sabbath rest. But there was no prohibition about worshiping God on the first day of the week, which is what I think the early Christians did. So we've got a number of questions and comments coming in here. I'll try to address those, but let's go to our, hopefully, our next quiz question. The Latin translation of the Bible produced by Jerome is known as the, all right, for those of you that are just joining us, we are doing 10 quiz questions. If you have an intention to watch this entire live stream, I hope I can wrap it up in the next 15 minutes or so. Please type in the comments, digging deep in there, and give us your, if you make it to the end of the video, give us your score at the end of this stream. The Latin translation of the Bible produced by Jerome is known as the A, Peshitta, B, Codex Vaticanus, C, the Vulgate, or D, the Masoretic text. Okay. All right. Give you a second. It is C, the Vulgate. It is C, the Vulgate. All right. Moving on here. Oh, yes. This is a picture of an owl. I wanted to tell you all about something, and some of you have asked some questions about this. I have partnered with Biblical Mastery Academy. We have developed a way, if you're interested in the Septuagint and you're interested in the Greek New Testament, I have partnered with Biblical Mastery Academy and have developed a course for families and specifically children to learn the Greek of the Septuagint, the New Testament. And you can do this as a family. We have family plans that are available now, and you'll get to meet characters like this. And some people said, can the adults join into the fun? Yes, they can. It's if you have children, young children, this is geared towards young children. But I'll be honest with you, sometimes the way that we teach young children, some adults would maybe benefit from some of that sometimes. So we have live calls, and we are only accepting 30 new memberships. And so for live instruction, and we have, loads of material that are up that you can work through so they can get the grammar and all of that. For live instruction, the pricing that we have on this for an entire family, I know what some others are doing, and the pricing to actually get somebody who's there teaching you. I'm just really pleased to offer it at the price that we are. So some of you are wondering, what are you pricing it at? $27 for an individual per month. And it's $37 though if you have a family of, if you've got a family of 8, right, and you want your whole family to learn Greek, you can start at $37 a month. So I wanted to tell you about that, get that out there. If you have questions about that, please feel free to ask me. Okay, moving on. One of the most popular videos that I have on my channel right now is the Geneva Bible, and let me know in the comments down here, why do you think that is? Why are people so interested in the Geneva Bible? And tell me if you think I'm right on this. I'm going to give you my main reasons why people are interested in the Geneva Bible. And I love the Geneva Bible, by the way. I think it's cool. I think some people don't want to suffer from what C.S. Lewis called chronological snobbery. There are some people who think that you need the newest and best, and sometimes the old is just fine. I also think that some people are distrustful of modernity. some of the things that our modern culture has brought in, and some of the things, and some people are distrustful of modern scholars. This is a translation that's tied to the Reformation era, especially if you come from a Reformed tradition. You're going to like that. Another thing you don't have to worry about the Geneva Bible, it can't be woke, right? It precedes the woke movement. Uh, I don't think I attract very many people that are woke on my channel. I think I run those people off pretty quickly. But this is not a woke translation. It predates it. And that's one of the advantages that C.S. Lewis said. Now, C.S. Lewis advocated modern translations for his day. So I'm not trying to say he supported the Geneva Bible, but he said you ought to read, I think it was something like this. He said you ought to read 2 old books for every 1 new book you read. He said, because he says, not that the people in the past didn't have blind spots. They did have blind spots, but the thing about it is that they had different blind spots than we do. And so there is some value in some of this. And also, the Geneva Bible was translated by top-notch scholars. Some of these guys knew Greek far better than many modern scholars do today. I mean, these guys spoke Greek back and forth to one another. I mean, they knew their stuff, and they knew it very, very well. And they didn't have television. They didn't have much to do other than to go deep into some of these original languages. Jay Conlon says, it's an excellent price to learn Greek. I think it is an excellent price to learn Greek. Thank you for saying that. I should say that we are only taking 30 new members, and we've got a new cohort that's starting in September. We've got a wait list for that. So if you want to get in, go ahead and click that link. You're not committing to anything by putting your name in there, but I'm going to tell you that there are already people that are on this wait list. They're going to be the first ones that know about it, but those 30 seats, Lord willing, may go fast. And so I can only focus on so many. I work full time as well, so I can only focus on so many people at a time, but would love to see you there. Love to get you in on that. And if you're a grandparent, this is a great gift to your children. So please feel free to share that with people if you know that they're interested. All right. So here is our 7th quiz question. Which of these best describes the Masoretic text? A Greek translation of the Old Testament. B, a Hebrew text tradition with vowel points. C, a Latin paraphrase of the Psalms. D, an early Aramaic translation of the New Testament. All right, the correct answer to that is B, a Hebrew text tradition with vowel points. Again, our earliest manuscript for that text is about 900 AD, but the text it represents goes back far earlier than that, and so it's very, very important. All right, moving on here. I did have a correction here, and time is slipping away, so I won't spend a whole lot of time on this, but I did make a mistake in regards to Hosea 14:2. I said that the Dead Sea Scroll manuscripts supported the Septuagint reading there. I learned this verse as, we render the calves of our lips, but the Septuagint and the New Testament would render this verse with fruit. I said the Dead Sea Scroll manuscripts support that. And you can see where I got this idea. But the note here is just a bit confusing. It's from the Lexham Textual Notes. And again, the live stream is getting quite lengthy here. So some of this is technical, but essentially, you could pause this if you wanted to read through all the technical details here. What I really should have said is that the Dead Sea Scroll manuscripts allows the reading of fruit. And this all has to do with the consonantal text, the Hebrew text here, and the vowel pointings. But it was too much to say that it supported it, because the consonantal text, that is the consonants of the Masoretic text, and those of the Dead Sea Scrolls, that has the same consonants, but the Dead Sea Scrolls do not have the vowel points. So it's the vowel pointing here that would really make this read bulls that the Masoretic text has. I know that's very technical. We'll move on here quickly, but if you really like to nerd out on some of that stuff, that's something that you could pause the screen here and you go back and read the note on there. But I did have to issue a correction on that. Now, that being said, there is an update coming. So for those of you who downloaded, I have a sheet that shows 72, actually over 72 alignments, more than 72 alignments between the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Septuagint, which is really fascinating. I've just really blew my mind. I made a mistake on this one in the way I wrote that up, and I found at least one or two other mistakes. So I'm going to correct that document and I'm going to reissue that document. If you want access to the updated document, there is a link in the description that says My Landing Page. If you put that in there, it will initially take you to the older document, but I'm going to be emailing out to my email list that updated document so you can get your hands on that. All right. Thank you so much for those of you that have hung on for this live stream here. We'll go on to our 8th quiz question. What language were most of the Dead Sea Scrolls written in? Let us know what language most of the Dead Sea Scrolls were written in. Is it A, Greek, B, Latin, C, Hebrew, or D, Syriac? The answer to that one is D. I'm sorry, not D. C, Hebrew. C, Hebrew. All right, very good. Cool. We're going to go on to our next quiz question in just a moment, but I want to get to some of your comments here. I've gotten way far behind. I apologize about that. Yeah. Barker Russ says, I would argue the Sabbath Sabbath was confirmed when Christ said that the Sabbath was made for man. It's a good argument for confirmation as any of the detractors. Also, Sabbath days, plural, refers to holy days that were also referred to as Sabbaths. He also says, yes, they came together on the first day of the week because Sabbath was a rest. So they got together ready for the departure. Also, I don't see any reason why communion is only Sabbath. Okay. All right. Sharing his perspective there on the Sabbath. I think I gave a pretty good explanation of where I'm coming from on that. Autumn says, if you look at the 10 Commandments closer, are they not ultimately the way to actively love God and our neighbor? Amen. Yeah, that is the point there, I think, Autumn, is that these things, as Colossians said, that some of these ceremonial things were a shadow. We don't want to, I heard somebody say one time that imagine you're walking along with your beloved and she casts a shadow down upon the ground, and you go down and you start worshiping the shadow. And you say, oh, I just love this shadow. I just love it. It's just so glorious, so wonderful. It's like, you can't fall in love with the shadow when you have the real thing. And that's what the New Testament is about. It's not about falling in love with the shadows. It's about falling in love with the person who casts the shadow, and that's Christ. Eric Waite says, Dr. Joseph Pipa argues that refers to the additional Sinai Sabbath keeping, not Exodus 28 through 11 Sabbath. Okay. That's probably a comment directed particularly at a particular point in the video. All right, and some discussion back and forth on the Sabbath day. I appreciate that. Revolution says Jesus is our Sabbath. Yes. Revolution said Vulgate. That was the right answer on that one. LaDonna agrees Jesus is the Sabbath. Yes, very good. Everybody's doing very good on the quiz, it looks like. Yes, okay, all right. Greek is a fascinating language. Yes. All right, digging deep from Don Poole. I really appreciate that. I appreciate those of you that are digging deep. If you intend to watch this whole video, even if it's not today, type in digging deep. All right, so there is some discussion that will be a discussion that people have as far as the Sabbath. Till the Lord returns, people will be debating on the Sabbath, and I appreciate that, but I did want to share my perspective. Chick-fil-A is closed on Sunday, so it must be Sunday. I love that comment. Yeah, that's God's chicken, right? Is that how that is? All right, so I'm going a little longer than I thought, but I want to get through at least these quiz questions. Which modern Bible translation is known for being essentially literal and widely used in evangelical churches? Is it A, the Message? Is it B, New International Version? Is it C, the English Standard Version, or is it D, the Good News Bible? It is C, the English Standard Version. Very good. Very good. All right. Cool. All right. There are diverse backgrounds in the chat, and I really appreciate that. I hope that we can foster a atmosphere where people from different viewpoints. I think our differences are important sometimes, but I think it's also important to be able to discuss these things charitably, and it really feels like that's what's going on in the chat there, and I appreciate that. All right. Number 10, our last quiz question. The discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls helped confirm the accuracy of which Old Testament book in particular with nearly a complete manuscript. So this particular book got a lot of fame through Wes Huff and his interview with Joe Rogan. He said and claimed that this particular book matched up word for word perfectly, something along that lines. And of course, he was corrected for that, but it is a very, very close what we have in that particular scroll in that particular book with what we have in the later Masoretic text. So is it A, Genesis, B, Isaiah, C, Psalms, or D, Proverbs? And AOC has it right. It is Isaiah. Very good. All right. Yes, I appreciate this. Thank you guys so much for digging deep. I appreciate all the comments that have come in here and all the good interaction that's on here. I'm sure I didn't get to everybody's question. If you had a question, you wanted me to address it, and I didn't get it as on this live stream here, there is a main comment section. If you'll drop it in there, Lord willing, I'll try to get to that. I don't get to all my comments anymore. There's just too many of them, which is a blessing. I love talking about the Bible, but if I know the answer, I don't know all the answers. But if I can, I'll show myself again. If I can, I'll try to get to those, try to address some of your questions. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for being on the live stream tonight and interacting. This has been a lot of fun. And I hope to see you on the other side. And maybe we can figure out something about a shirt or something for this new idea, Digging Deep. Maybe it needs a logo change. You guys think it needs a logo change? I don't know, but I appreciate you guys so much. You guys are doing amazing on the quiz. Let us know your final score. We've already got one final score here. David got a 10. LaDonna got a 10. You guys are amazing. You are officially Bible aficionados. I'll stay here for 30 more seconds to see if we got any more scores that come in. 30 more seconds. I'm setting my timer on my watch here. 30 more seconds. Any more scores? Eric Waite got a 10. Jay Collin got a 6. Very good. Thank you guys for staying on this live stream. It means so much to me. That's just so amazing that you've spent your time with me. Christy got a 9. It's just amazing to me that people will tune in to watch the Bible. You could be watching so many crazy videos that are out there. You'd be watching somebody who spent $1 million to make a video, but you're watching this video because you love the word. Even if you disagree with me, I'm sure you love the word. So thanks. Someone said for the video, I appreciate it. And Autumn says, great live stream. Thank you guys. And I'll be looking forward to seeing you on another day. Bye.